Hi, everybody. Welcome to the QB School. I am JT O'Sullivan. Today, we are talking about how to coach young quarterbacks to get off the first read. Fired up for this one. Let's dive into it. Welcome to the QB School. So before we dive into this video, quick reminder, relaunching, revamping the Quarterback School Patreon community this month. Streamlined the process. It's cheaper, never been easier. Get over there, check it out. The link can be found in the description to this video. I appreciate you supporting the channel. It means a lot to me. It goes a long way to making this channel what it possibly can be moving forward, what it is now. I certainly appreciate it. Get over there, check it out. As for this one, the question comes from my man, Ben. All right, through the personal Twitter account. All right, Ben, you like those family photos. I like it. My hot takes on the Padres, going big. JT O'Sullivan, question for the show. How do you coach up kids to get off their first read? I've coached in if-then statements, but I'm not sure that's the best methodology for my young quarterbacks. So Ben, love the question. I'm going to dive into this one here. First off, quick little framing exercise for me. I personally just kind of setting the definition on what a kid's quarterback is. This video is going to talk about anecdotally my own experience coaching quarterbacks. That's at the high school level, mostly the varsity level, although the entire program teaching quarterbacks in the off season. And so for me, that's not necessarily kids. I don't call them kids intentionally, just as far as a framing reference. Now, if you're talking about youngsters, I'm thinking single digits. I don't have a whole lot of personal experience working with that other than just playing catch with my own kids. And I don't think we're doing anything about reads by any means, just having fun, chucking it around the yard. So for this, we're going to frame this around the high school level. And we're going to talk mostly about tackle football, real tackle football. Some of this can be applicable to the 7-on-7 world because I do think there are potentially some differences and maybe some strains in what that kind of approach would look like for me. But really, I have kind of a two-prong approach here when I'm thinking about how to teach young quarterbacks to get through reads. And so I like to think of it as, I don't necessarily explain it to them as a two-pronged approach, but philosophically, the pedagogy behind my idea about teaching, and that's just a fancy way to say how we're going to teach it. How we're going to teach it is have kind of a universal approach, a program approach. So this is how we talk about reads. This is how we install reads. This is our kind of ideology behind how we're going to work through progressions, how we're going to bucket concepts, how we're going to fit the offense into how we teach and talk about these concepts. And so for that element of it, I think it's important. I prefer to do what I consider a really clean, simple, almost exclusively pure progression. Now, I hedge that a little bit. If you ask my quarterbacks, they would probably hedge that. I don't necessarily formally introduce things as alerts or, hey, versus this specific coverage, we really like this. But we do talk about certain like zero looks or quarters looks, or, if we catch two-man, this is not what we want. Those types of things that are kind of, to me, fall a little bit closer into if-then. But I've never operated in a specific if-then kind of catalog of offensive plays. I think for me, I prefer a pure progression. I think it's simple. I think it's easy. I think it's applicable to be able to teach quickly, depending on what that looks like. I coached high school football for 3 years, really 3+ quarterbacks, different quarterbacks, definitely more than 3, being able to take meaningful varsity snaps. And so having a approach that can kind of be good enough for all of them, but also flexible and adaptive. And we'll talk about what that looks like moving forward. But for me, when we're talking pure progression, I like to think of it as pure progression tethered to certain variables. What are those variables? Well, is he open? Is the receiver open? How do we tell if he's open? There are certain systems that will go into significant depth for what that looks like. For me, it's not that complicated. Hey, can I throw it to the first kind of read in the progression when I'm supposed to and not have a defender touch the ball? If I can, that's open. That can be different to every quarterback. So how do we get there? There can be a lot of variables about what that looks like. But for me, is he open? Is the receiver open? And then am I looking where I'm supposed to be looking when I'm supposed to be looking? So it's tethered to my footwork, the drop. The drops are not suggestions. If you can't memorize the drops tethered to the concepts, you're not going to play quarterback for me. I think that's most places. That's not like a JT O'Sullivan special rule. I think It makes things easier as far as understanding the timing, the layering, the rhythm about what these things are. And again, there are massive in-depth systems that go into significant detail about that. But I think if you start from the standpoint of, hey, we're going to play this thing from the ground up. What is the drop? Where are my eyes supposed to be? What is the first read? Whether it's a, hey, is it a pure progression like we're reading this, we're looking at this specific player? Or are we talking about we're reading a specific defender? We're reading the hook defender. We're reading the flat defender. We're reading the safety. We're reading the middle field player. Little things like that matter, I think, as much as possible to make it as simple and consistent as possible. Can go a long way to accelerating the learning for a young player. But for me, I want as many pure progressions as possible. I want the quarterbacks to understand that the read, the timing is tethered to your feet. So you have to have the capacity to get basically at the back of your drop, whether it's a hitch or no hitch, reset, no reset, drop, whatever the back of your drop looks like when you're at the launch point, that usually times up with the first read. From there, if you hitch or reset, you're usually on to the second, on to the third, etc. And I would imagine if you talk to players that I've coached in the past, they would say that they have heard me say this statement a lot, and so I'll say it here. And I didn't make it up. I stole it from Mike McCarthy when he was my offense coordinator in New Orleans, my first couple years in the league. But it's really applicable to many positions in football, not just offense, but really for the quarterback and eligible specifically. If you can count to 3, you can play for me. So you need to know what the first read, the second read, the third read is. So if you can count to 3, you can play for me, and you can certainly play quarterback. And if you can get through 3 reads consistently, you're probably playing at a really high level. I've been around a number of guys in the league that play quarterback that I can say with a fair amount of truth behind it that they would struggle to get through 3 reads consistently. Now, that doesn't mean that they didn't play really well at a really high level for a really long time, but getting through 3 guys consistently is hard to do at any level. I don't care if it's 7-on-7 or, the highest levels of the NFL in a playoff game. It's tough. So to be able to just understand it, to give yourself a shot to do it from the pocket, I think goes a long way. So again, pure progressions are the easiest. Tethering, the pure progression, getting through the read. So going from your first read, hey, this is my first read. It's not there. I can't make that throw without a defender hitting it. Hitch or reset, on to the next, and so on and so forth. And so that's kind of the universal approach I go from there. And then I think it's important to say that's how we talk about it in the classroom, in the offseason, in camp, in maybe quarterback competitions. But then once we get going in live tackle in-season football, every quarterback I've ever coached has had what I would say is kind of a specific menu for them. And so some guys might be guys that can do 1, 2, 3 processing. Some guys might be a 1 and run. Some guys might be 1-2 run. And it might vary per week based on maybe we're playing a beast up front. We don't have time to take 3 hitches back there. Maybe we don't have the offensive line health to be able to take 2 hitches this week. We had a really successful season with a quarterback that I would say was not comfortable getting through a lot of reads. And so it was a 1 and run for the most part situation, and just understanding why we're trying to sit back there and throw it. And that's really the part I want to focus on here to finish this thing out. And really what I should have tethered to the earlier part of this video. The why of the passing concept, explaining that from the jump. So when you're talking about, hey, this is the drop, this is the read, this is the progression, why are we calling this play? If you can explain it, say, hey, we're trying to get the ball, we're trying to take advantage of this area of the field. We're trying to exploit this position. We're trying to threaten them vertically. If you can explain the why and the quarterback can regurgitate to you the why in a way that makes sense to them, hey, we want to take a shot. Hey, we're using this as kind of a 3rd down red zone play. Hey, this is a touchdown, check down ideology. If they can explain the why of the concept, I think it goes a long way to allowing them to play faster and understand the timing and the progression and that kind of why we're calling this play. And so when we're in season mode, not only do the timing, the progressions change for every quarterback I ever coached, but I really reinforce the why. Hey, game planning this week. We love this matchup. We think our guys are better than this corner. We're going to attack this corner with double moves. When we call a double move, you need to know why. I want this ball thrown. And to be able to protect your quarterback and help your quarterback to be able to not have to worry about getting through reads. I think I don't want this to come at people sideways, but at the high school level, most coaches, I would say, can manipulate their concepts, or at least the ones I've been around and seen and played against, so that their first read is probably open. Specifically, anecdotally for me, we were such a peak tempo team, meaning essentially we would fake clap, look at the sideline, and if I can look at your defense and be able to call a pass play, there's a pretty good chance that the first read is going to be open. I'm not saying that I'm necessarily the best play caller in the world, but we're probably going to have the one-on-one that we want more often than not. And so for the quarterback to know that, why we're calling this, why we are signaling this play in. And then the flip side of that is to be able to protect the play caller, to say, hey, if it's not there, if the guy falls, if they rotate differently, if something looks drastically different post-snap, you got to protect me as a play caller. I need you to know, hey, you got to get off this. You can't make this throw without the defender making a play on the ball, without someone knocking this thing down, without something bad happening here. And so to understand the why of what we're trying to do, I think personally for me has helped quarterbacks really accelerate their processing from within the pocket. So reinforce the why and don't forget about it. It's easy to reinforce the why when you're in the installations, when you're talking about it in camp, and we're in camp mode right now. But when you're in the season, I think it goes a long way. I think sometimes people just assume, hey, we're calling this, deep shot post with an over. Well, we want that post versus this coverage, and we want this over versus that coverage, if then whatever. Well, this week, I'm calling this because I want the post. I expect the post to be there. That's why we're calling it. If it's not there, if the guy's back there thinking that we're going to punt, well, then let's rip the over. You got to protect me. That's the timing of it. That's the relationship between the play caller and being able to really help your quarterback, specifically if they do struggle with being able to say, hey, they're struggling to get off their one. There might be a 1-and-run, 1-2 run type situation this week. Well, let's really craft plays where we think we can manipulate the first read to be open. Maybe it's incorporating short motion. Maybe it's incorporating new formations. Maybe it's moving guys around that are usually static. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. It's not that complicated. And to be able to help your quarterback, I think goes a long way to being a good play caller, being a good coach. But for me, reinforcing the why in season. Hey, we might only throw the ball, 10, 20, if we're flinging it 30 times a game. Why are we calling these plays? Why? What do we want to do with the ball? Why am I calling it? Those types of things. If you can reinforce that, I think you can go a long way to doing something that a coach can make a direct impact into helping that quarterback be able to get off the first read. Because if it's not there, how can you protect me as a play caller? What can you do to save the play? Maybe you just need to run. It's not the end of the world to have what probably is one of your best athletes playing quarterback, running the ball downhill, tackle football with a bunch of guys getting upfield to rush the passer. So we've had a lot of success with just tailoring what the progression looks like, what the timing looks like to each quarterback, because not all guys have the same capacity to process and get through reads. And instead of, hitting your head against the wall, let's use that strength to be able to maybe take advantage of what the defense has given us if that first read isn't there, which it should be, specifically at lower levels. And finally, I would just say that there really is no best methodology, in my opinion. There's a number of different ways to do it. I think as long as you're consistent, and I would reinforce the capacity within your system to be adaptive and flexible, but also have underlying principles. So those underlying principles are reinforced in the offseason, in camp, when you're talking about the base looks. But once you get into the game, I think the best systems are really adaptive and flexible and built to take advantage of your players' strengths, what they do really well, and reinforcing those things, talking them up, pumping them up, making them feel like they are a true weapon back there, even if they struggle to get off the first read. It's not the end of the world. We can still find ways to be really dynamic offensively, and we can help them. It's not just on them saying, hey, good luck out there, bro. I called this. Go get them. It's, hey, let's craft this play to make sure we get the best matchup possible, like with our best player against their potential weakest defender, as consistently as possible. So lots of different ways to come at it. I really appreciate the question. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know what other questions you want to see tackled on the channel. I will see you next time. Have a good one.